And now, a brand new episode of Script2Screen Spotlight here on Radio Lebanon 96.2 FM, made to be heard.
Darkness falls across our show, the midnight hour closer than you know. Creatures crawl and search for social media posts to terrorize y'all Script2Screen hosts.
Welcome to the Halloween special of Script2Screen Spotlight here on Radio Lebanon 96.2 FM. I'm your host, Al Mahana, and joining me in the studio is not only the solo to my Chewbacca, but our awesome buddy, horror film fiend, the one and only Clint Maximus.
Hey, I'm in the house.
You are in the house.
Yeah.
So this is the Spook-tacular Script2Screen Halloween special, which was basically overly recommended by you, Had. You kept saying we got to do a Halloween special.
Of course, Halloween is like when, in a few days?
Yeah. In a few days.
So we have to talk about like scary. What's your favorite scary movie?
Yeah. See, this is the thing, because I think you guys on this panel here, you guys outbid me here, because I'm not a huge
horror fan.
I'm not a huge horror fan. I very recently started watching horror movies. Maybe I would say like 5 or 6 years ago, I started watching horror movies. I used to be very frightened of them.
Okay.
Up until maybe like 2009 or 2010, that's when I really started watching. So yeah, so like almost 10 years ago, less than 10 years ago, I started watching horror movies. But yeah,
I think the pro here is Clint.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, he's literally in here wearing an Evil Dead shirt. I mean,
yeah.
This is my boomstick was the one that I chose today. It was either this one or I think I had like not an Exorcist one. I think there was something I had. I forgot what it was. I was looking for it, but I chose this one. So.
Well, nice.
All good.
Yeah. So, well, we're going to be talking about a bunch of different stuff today. We're going to cover some of our favorite horror films. What was the first horror movie that we saw? The evolution of horror over the years. Now it's almost like its merger into television. So we are now going to jump right in here and start talking horror. What the first horror movie? What was the first horror movie you watched here? What was it?
First horror? Okay.
Yeah.
So as everyone knows, the first movie that scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, because I wrote that down too, because I go, well, that wasn't really a horror movie, but that was the movie that actually scared the living bejesus out of me.
I loved it. This story, when he told me this story, I thought about this all the way home. Last time I just couldn't get it out of my head, so I really want to hear it again. And then later on, I want to hear the uncensored version.
Yeah. It has to be very polite. Well, so the first movie that scared the hell out of me was E.T.
Yep.
I watched it as a kid. I'm going to go quickly through the story because I have told the story before.
Sure.
But I was probably, 7, 8 years old. I was in Cyprus. I watched E.T. And then something started to happen to E.T. He fell and then something tore and it scared the crap out of me. And I started to cry. and next thing I know, I'm in my room trying to sleep and I can't sleep. My eyes are wide open. I'm crying. My mom and my dad are calm down. It's just a movie. And no, he's going to die. And then my dad was so upset that he takes the VHS tape. We lived on the 7th floor in Cyprus. He opens the window. He's like, E.T.
And then
E.T. Let's just say a lot of bad words. And then let's just say E.T. flew home. The tape flew out. And for a long time, I couldn't watch anything scary until a bit later in life. And I think the first time I got into to watch a horror movie was The Exorcist. Yeah. And for some reason, it wasn't that scary to me. Maybe E.T. had traumatized me so much that I was ready for anything after that. But that was the first horror film I watched was the original Exorcist. And I think it was a bit disappointing to me because I had heard so much that people had died watching it initially.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a good movie. The performance by Linda Blair, if I'm not mistaken, is fantastic, but didn't scare me that much. How about you, Clint?
Me, well, I think the first time I got scared in a movie, obviously it wasn't a horror movie the first time, but when I was a kid, according to my father, I used to be scared of movies when characters had red eyes for some reason.
Okay.
So when I was a kid, I used to see Ghostbusters. I saw... it's one of the Star Wars ones. Which one with the one with the thing in his head? He had red eyes. The last one, Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi. I saw that in cinemas. Apparently, I was hiding behind the seat as a kid because the guy had red eyes.
Wow.
So when I was a kid, that's what really used to scare me, was red eyes. But like you, the same thing. First horror movie I ever saw was The Exorcist. That was among the VHSs at home. I was like, what's this? Popped it in. But unlike you, it did scare the hell out of me. It really did. It really freaked me out. Even till now, I still think about, am I going to watch this? I'm like almost 40 now. So it's like, even I sit there and think, do I really want to watch this again? It traumatized me as a kid. Will it traumatize me now? Because it's just like you said, there's the stories behind it. And there's just certain elements in that movie that just don't feel right to me. It's like, that's what it is. So I guess they achieved their goal in that movie. Yeah.
Well, mine also is sort of like a repeated story because the first movie that actually scared the living Jesus out of me was Jurassic Park. Because again, like I was brought up watching The Land Before Time, and like dinosaurs were supposed to be nice and colorful and friendly. They used to sing songs, and then they're velociraptors attacking children in kitchens. So that terrified me. I woke up the next morning with a very high fever. Like it was a mess. But I honestly don't remember what the first official horror film that I saw, like what film it was. I have a feeling it was crap. I just had I have a feeling it was Carrie.
Okay.
Carrie.
Yeah, like the one with the original actress. What's her face?
I always forget her name, but I know what it is.
Redhead, Sissy Spacek.
Sissy Spacek, yeah. I think that's what it was. I'm not 100% sure, but that's one of the things that pops into my head. And that scared me too. I think, the blood and her eyes, it's just really creepy. I don't think I have seen The Exorcist still to this day. I have a big problem with exorcism horror films in general. Okay. Like anything that deals with, exorcisms or demon possessions or whatever. I have a big problem with them. They really bother me on an existential level. So I don't think I've ever seen The Exorcist. I've seen a few exorcism movies, but I don't think I've seen the original Exorcist yet.
You should see the original.
I should see it. I really should see it. So then, jumping off from that, my second kind of topic here is going to be what your favorite horror film is. So now that we've sort of spoken about what our initial or initiation into horror was, what's been one of your favorite horror films so far?
Well, the thing is, I have a lot. That's the problem. I have a lot of horror movies. I mean, obviously, everyone knows I'm a big...
And this is why you're here.
Yeah. one of the... I mean, obviously, everyone knows that I am a huge Evil Dead fan.
Yeah.
Because of Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. I mean, from that first movie up until the third one, up until the TV series, even that reboot one that they did a few years ago, that was pretty good, I thought. I thought it wasn't bad. It had some of the characteristics of the old original movie. So, for me, definitely the Evil Dead trilogy, because seeing those as a kid and seeing that first one really did scare the hell out of me. Literally, this is what I used to watch the horror movies for. I mean, this day and age, when you watch a lot of horror movies, a lot of them are good. Yeah. A lot of them are well written, well edited. Sound design is awesome, but they're just not scary because a lot of them have a lot of CGI effects. Yeah,
and we're going to talk about the evolution of horror a little later on the show. So Evil Dead trilogy for you.
Yeah.
I think also something else that, and we'll probably talk about the practical effects again. Like that's another thing I feel like that's kind of an issue now with horror films is that not a lot of them are practical. Like some of the scares aren't even practical scares anymore. They're just very CGI, kind of like you said.
Well, actually, a movie you should watch just for practical horror effects is The Thing, the original one by John Carpenter, because the practical effects in that
they're massive.
Are so even when I saw that really freaked me out. You're seeing parts of the body are being pulled off. You know what I mean? That was crazy. What on earth? So seeing that as a kid was really freaky.
What about you, Had?
What about me? Okay, so there's a fine line between horror and I think extreme thriller. So I was like a movie like Silence of the Lambs. I wouldn't classify it as a pure horror movie, but it does have these.
It does have some characteristics, though. Yeah.
So to me, that's one of the finest films because
it puts the lotion on the skin. I had to do it. Sorry. It puts the lotion on the skin. I used to say that for so long. Sorry, go on.
Oh gosh.
and another movie I actually like a lot was the first Scream. Because I think what it did was reinvent, kind of reboot
the slasher
cliches
film
and everything, and it gave new life to horror movies.
It was very meta though too. Like it was self-commenting on horror and all that stuff.
Absolutely, and I think that's probably one. If you want like as a horror slasher kind of film, that would be it.
Yeah,
got it.
So for me, it's a tie because I think I don't know if one of them also, same with you as Silence of the Lambs, I don't know if it really classifies as a horror film. I would classify it as a horror film, and that would be earlier this year's A Quiet Place. Yeah. It does have a lot of horror characteristics. The horror, it is more of a sci-fi horror, I would say, but it does have a lot of horror characteristics. You know, the bathroom scene where Emily Blunt is in labor. Yeah. I mean, that terrified me to my core, man. Plus, they had the jump scares and all that stuff. So I did like that. But I think my all-time favorite horror film is actually a Sam Raimi film. Which is kind of funny because you were just mentioning Sam Raimi. Drag Me to Hell.
Yeah, Drag Me. You know, because that movie just felt like an Evil Dead movie. 100%. Yeah. With the slapstick comedy and the horror. It was awesome. For me, I saw that at the Cannes Film Festival the year it was released. Sam Raimi was in the audience. The actors were in the audience. It was like on a giant freaking movie screen. It was like the best thing I had ever seen. And I'm not a horror fan, but something about this movie, I was just, like, my eyes are glued to the screen. I was like terrified the whole time. Like it was a lot of fun. It was just a fun ride. The scares were scary, but the fun was fun too. Exactly, you know, like that the humor was, and I think that good balance of humor in a horror film makes the scares even scarier because your mood is like elevated, so you're not even expecting.
They're playing around with you,
That's what Sam Raimi says whenever he's doing a lot of interviews. He likes to play with people's emotions. He likes those comedy elements because he knows that at some point he's going to scare you. Yeah, he literally is. So that's the whole point of his movies.
So what is it about this genre? Do you think that attracts audiences so much?
I think because people just. You know why? Because, I mean, if you go to the movies, whether you're watching a love movie, you want to feel the romance. You go to a comedy, you want to feel the comedy. If you're going to go to a horror movie, you want to be scared. But at the point where you want to be scared, but if you're like a horror fanatic like me, you come to a point where movies don't scare you anymore. So then you start looking for the next evolutionary step. You're waiting for this next step in the movie food chain, should I say? Because I think this is what's going to happen. You know, I mean, you're already seeing it now with a lot of the horror movies coming out. They're using social media in a lot of their movies now, and they're getting more present with the horror movies and stuff like that. And it's cool. But I'm also seeing a lot of horror movies now. They're going back to the old school way of doing it, which is kind of cool. So we can talk about that later on here. But what about you?
I think, like you said, when we have certain range of emotions that we want to satisfy. Yeah. So you want to go laugh at the movies, and you want to go fall in love and watch a love story and action and that adrenaline, and then you want to be scared, you want to be shocked, you want to be put out of your comfort zone and out of the element you're in and feel these feelings. And I think on a regular basis, on a day-to-day basis, being scared like that is different than laughing or than falling in love and so on, and it's much more impactful at the movies. So that's for me. I mean, the only thing I could write down in my notes is like people who like adrenaline rushes are probably more likely to enjoy horror films than people who don't. You know, like I know for a fact that the older I got and the more I started appreciating horror more, I could kind of see the thrill of it. This concept of I feel like, you know, messing with myself and scaring the living bejesus out of myself. Why the heck not, you know? But when I was younger, I felt the idea, the whole concept for me was just like, why on earth would you go to a movie that's going to put you through a traumatizing, you know, terrifying experience? Whereas now it's like, well, this is kind of the beauty of
horror is the ability to manipulate, so for me, I've shifted perspective to like why a filmmaker would want to make this movie and how a filmmaker is manipulating me into being scared or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So that's where I started to kind of appreciate the idea of experiencing that fear in a movie. So it's 2018 and horror's been around for eons and eons and eons. How has it evolved in the last I don't know, maybe like decade? For me personally, the first thing I wrote down in my notes, I was like, more gore and more blood, because it just feels like horror has somehow become just all about the chopping up body parts and the blood, specifically with like things like Saw and Hostel and all those movies. Just felt like they, for a while, horror was just like a gore fest. It wasn't necessarily about the fear, And then you kind of mentioned earlier, CGI and all that stuff. So let's just unpack here. Let's dig deeper.
I think with the gore factors, because I think in horror goes through phases over the years, definitely, like any genre of movie, I guess, like whether it be a thriller or a comedy. But I think with horror specifically, because horror has such a big cult following. This is the thing about horror. This is why it's so popular these days, because like you said, like with Saw, I don't know if you saw, there was a movie I watched recently called Revenge. It was a mixture between French and English. It starts off as a thriller, but then it ends up being just a big gore fest. Literally just full of blood, but it got things at like Cannes and stuff like that.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, Revenge. You have to check this movie out.
Okay.
So, as I said, I think it's a matter of shocking the audience now, and we've hit a point where you can go onto social media and probably see some really weird stuff online.
Yeah, very true.
You know what I mean? You don't need to go to the movies to see it. So this is why you're going to get all these extreme gory movies now, because they're pushing the bar to get more things in. But as I was saying before, the thing I like about the horror genre now, again, is because of all the subgenres, a lot of movies are going back to practical effects and stuff like that. Like there was a movie that came out maybe, I don't know if it was last year or the year before. It was called It Follows.
Yes.
It Follows didn't use any CGI.
No.
It didn't use anything. It just it was a girl running away from something that wasn't even there. It was just the whole concept of the fear factor that there is something chasing you.
Yeah, and it was just camera movement, wasn't it?
It was camera movement, and it was the music.
And the music.
Because when I was looking at the interviews with the director, he was saying that it was the music that he really wanted to make suspenseful, and it was like building and building and building. So even you're like, I don't get it. I don't know why I'm so scared. There's something going on. I don't know. And that movie as well really freaked me out a couple of times. That one, It Follows.
James Wan also he directed the first Conjuring. Did he not? Yeah. And like for me, that was one of the I was like, whoa, this is like classic horror there. Like the scene in the basement with the the clap. I was just like, that was terrifying. But it was, I think for me, I think horror works best when you connect with the characters in just like any other movie. Exactly, when you connect with the characters in the story. If you're not connecting to the characters in the story, you're not going to be afraid for anything. Like there's nothing. And I think that's where, a lot of these like franchises, like kind of like Saw and like the Paranormal Activity movies, the first ones hit the nail on the head. It was a perfect bullseye. And then everything that came afterwards was just like, okay, this isn't...
Saw 1 was James Wan.
Oh, well, there we go.
Saw 1 was...
There we go.
When I saw that, I was like, what is this movie? What an amazing twist on that. I'm not going to say the ending, obviously, but the ending
if you haven't seen Saw 1 at this point, that's
you should stop your foot right now.
That's slightly problematic. If you haven't seen this movie, and it's 2018, it's slightly problematic. With... CGI, CGI, just like anything else. I feel like CGI just ruins it. Like it pulls you out. Like when you see something that is so CGI'd, it pulls you out. It just doesn't work. Hitchcock's films still to this day, Rear Window still to this day terrifies the living the living heck out of me. That scene where he's the photo camera and you see the flash and you see him and then it's like there's darkness again and then you see him and he's closer and you're like, this is horror. Horror is it's like a mental game. And the other thing I kind of wrote here was most recently in horror films, they reveal things versus back in the day, it was all about the mystery and what was in the shadows.
Yeah, exactly.
Now it's all you see it. You know what I mean? They show you the monster, they show you the psycho, they show you the whatever. Whereas back in the day, it was the less they showed you, the more scared you got because your brain was filling in the gaps, and nothing's scarier than what you come up with to scare yourself, like indirectly. So, thoughts?
What do you think?
What do I think? I don't think anything right now. No. I'm so scared. Basically for me, when it comes to horror, to how it's evolved, how it's changed throughout these years, I think writing characters in these movies now is a bit more interesting than before. Horror, I think, started out as, if you want, kind of a dumbed down genre. It's like people killing people and so on. But with time, with evolution, they started to focus more on the story, on the twists, on the reveals, on these iconic characters, Hannibal Lecter, Jack Nicholson in
The Shining.
A Quiet Place, which is a movie you mentioned today, which was, and I think that's basically, to me, that's how it's evolved mainly. Yeah. And something else we're going to talk about, it's branching out onto TV, onto other platforms.
Before we shift over to TV, why don't we, aside from Sam Raimi, because I know you love Sam Raimi, but so let's put him to the side for this following question. Who are some filmmakers whose horror films you've really, really, really enjoyed?
I could probably tell you the movies, but half the time I can never remember half the directors. But I'm going to go through a few.
Well, okay. Well, what?
But the thing is, all the ones that I'm going to mention now are probably produced by Sam Raimi as well. You know what I mean? So let me see. Like I'll think back. Like for example, I was talking about Hellraiser before. Now, Hellraiser, the original movie and the second one were outstanding. The first one really was just it was a creepy gore fest. That was like, I don't know what they call it. There's an actual subgenre in horror that they call it. Is it dismemberment? I think they call it, or something like that.
Maybe
where the
like
things
that.
in it, anything where limbs are being ripped up. This is what this genre is. Yeah. And Hellraiser was in it. Was his name Clive something? Clive. If someone you can Google that.
I'll do it.
I'm like pointing out, but you Google it. You got it. So it was. It was a very famous person who actually did the story for Hellraiser. And seeing that one as a kid, and that was used with very cool practical effects as well. So that was a good horror movie back in the day. Let me think what else there was. The thing is,
Clive Barker.
That's the one.
British American horror film written and directed by Clive Barker.
Yeah. Clive Barker. He was famous for doing these kind of these limb removing kind of body party kind of movies of the genre, if you want to call it. I mean, this was like a trend back then, especially in the 80s and the 90s. So if you've got a couple of more movies, what I'm thinking now, because I have some in mind, but I can't remember off of them for some reason.
I mean, I've enjoyed Guillermo del Toro's the stuff that he's produced, as well as a few of his horror films, like horror-ish, I guess. Films. I know he did. He recently remade what is it? Crimson Peak.
Yeah,
Crimson
with Tom
Hiddleston.
Not bad at all.
That wasn't bad. I liked that. Yeah. There was another one that I believe he produced. It starred Katie Holmes. That also freaked me out.
Oh yeah, with the things they were taking the teeth and stuff.
Something like that.
Don't be afraid of the dark or something like that. Right?
Yeah, don't be afraid of the dark.
Yeah.
That was. I mean, there were some really creepy scenes in that movie.
Oh yeah.
So I because I feel like and I think Del Toro produced this. But he adds this sense of like fantasy in his horror. Yeah. So it's a horror subgenre. So it's like a fantasy horror type film. So it has a fantasy element, which kind of appeals to me because I'm a big fantasy fan.
Yeah.
So it kind of balances out I'll give this a try kind of a thing. So I have enjoyed his creepy fantasy horror films.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to be a bit like Clint. I'm not going to talk about one director, but maybe like
a few movies. Oh yeah, sure.
So probably on that list you'd have Seven by David Fincher.
He's just a fantastic director.
Which is a massive film with very gory kind of like shocking scenes.
I mean, literally, we were just talking about this last week that he's going to be directing World War Z 2.
Yeah.
He's going to be directing that. So that's kind of insane.
So you have Fincher. You have I was talking to Clint about this. The Sixth Sense.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Well, back in his day, he actually. Of course, from Split was phenomenal for me.
Yeah.
Split was like, wow, that's back to his glory.
Back to his actual,
you know what I mean?
proper.
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely agree with the M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, when he does it right, he does it
exactly.
right.
Yeah.
But when he messes up, he messes up.
The Sixth Sense was...
Last Airbender. Oh. Sorry, go on.
The what?
The Last Airbender.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, that's a horror movie in a different category, though.
Speaking of The Last Airbender, you heard that Netflix is producing a live action?
Well, if it's
with the showrunners, with the original showrunners, they're in charge of the live action.
But Netflix are doing well because they're investing in a lot of directors and producers who don't normally get out into Hollywood and get on these big screens. Because I remember when they started doing it, a lot of the Hollywood guys were freaking out. Yeah, and you can't do this. You know what I mean? But in the end, you haven't really been giving them a chance anyway. You know, so they've got to find some outlet and get their art out. I guess. Yeah.
Shifting over to television.
Yeah.
Horror's now found a new home almost as well on TV.
Yeah.
Because of things like American Horror Story, True Blood, which sort of counts because it had sort of horror-y.
Even Stranger Things.
Stranger Things.
The Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead. Castle Rock. There's a few more, actually. Hemlock's Grove or something along those lines. It was Eli Roth produced that. But I mean... That's crazy. I mean, like now people are tuning in to get scared every week, I
actually want to talk for me. The father of the TV shows was, I think you'll remember this Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt, of course.
Yes.
That was
Keeper.
I
have all of those at home, by the way, every single one.
Really?
Yeah,
I would love.
I have all of it.
Do you have it on DVD or do you have it on?
All downloaded, all HD.
Awesome.
It's even better.
I would love to get my hands on those.
Well, don't forget some of those were directed by the guy who directed Lethal Weapon. What's his name?
Richard Donner.
Yep.
Richard Donner.
Some of them were directed by him.
Yeah.
So it's like you can see the production values in the TV shows. It was crazy.
And I mean, you could also, I would also put, what's it called? Even after that, I would also put the X-Files on a sci-fi horror because they had some really creepy episodes. But it's interesting because for me, it's like when you put horror on television, it shifts the storytelling because now you're doing it week by week by week by week. Yeah. Or if you're on Netflix, which just recently released The House on Haunted Hill or something like those lines.
This is supposed to be really, really good.
It's getting some really decent reviews. And most recently, the CW started producing a teen drama called Riverdale, which is based on the Archie comics, and Archie has Archie horror. So they've been including a lot of the horror elements, which now Netflix is spinning off of Riverdale, creating the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Right, which the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is actually it's dark.
I saw
the trailer for the next. It's dark. I mean, like it's like Satanists. I'm like, what is happening?
Where's Sabrina?
Where's the talking cat?
That's what I was looking
for. Cute little cat.
When did this?
Salem.
When did this become so dark and like creepy? It's just it's crazy because it's on TV now. Yeah. Like it's serialized. It's not even you go for 2 hours and you are tuning in every week to get petrified.
Well, you know why. I mean, I think like from that shift from movie to TV, because TV now pretty much has some of the same budgets as any movie. Take
very
Game
true.
of Thrones, for example.
Very true.
The budgets are huge now, so you may as well just stay home and watch a movie, watch it on TV. And the thing is, with it being on TV, characters get to develop so much more now, which is awesome.
I mean, you connect to these characters on a much deeper level. which causes the fear and the tension, the adrenaline to rise and rise and rise and rise with every coming episode. I think that's why the Stranger Things formula works so well, or worked. I don't know about season 3, but I mean, seasons 1 and 2, and for me, 1 even more so than 2.
Yeah.
I think 1 had way more horror elements than 2 did. 2, because 2 spread, you kind of saw the spreading of the story, and you had different arcs that you needed to follow. You had 11's arc. You had what's the main kid's name? Darn it,
Will.
You had Will's arc, which that was where all the horror was, because he was seeing things and whatnot. But for me, season 1 was, that was pure horror. It was like finding the kid and the talking from the
the thing about Stranger Things was not always horror.
Upside
it was
down
quite nostalgic because it was set in the 80s.
Very true.
A lot like Goonies.
That's the kind of thing that when I was watching that, I was thinking that I was like, this is like a Goonies thing or Stand By Me. Like that's
exactly.
what it felt like to me. That's why I really got into it. Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, because it's a gang of kids or finding a big bad monster. It had that it element to it as well. Now you also had a franchise like The Evil Dead switch over to TV.
Television, yeah.
And you had mentioned this earlier that the pilot was directed by Sam Raimi, but then the rest of it was not.
No, it was all done by the guys who were behind like a lot of different TV shows, a lot of different directors. So, don't get me wrong, I did get into the TV show, I did like it, but even the fans were sitting there going, they want Sam Raimi to do this.
So it didn't live up to...
It kind of did in a way, just because the fact that Bruce Campbell was in it, I guess. Okay. Because I'm just a huge Bruce Campbell fan. Because when I watched that first episode, and I remember watching it, I was thinking, I hope that it kept that element of how Sam Raimi did it, because even Sam Raimi was doing a TV show, obviously the budgets are lower than doing a big budget movie. So he did it just like, I think, how he did it back in the day in the 80s when he was making these movies. So, again, as I said, though, budgets get higher, and these days you can just watch all of it on TV, man. That's how it is now. Yeah.
And again, the storytelling is much finer on TV. It's not what it was 10 years ago, 15, 20. It keeps on improving.
Oh, yeah.
The quality of the shows we're watching.
And on top of it, you're getting a lot of you're getting a lot of crossover between different genres on television as well. Because I was just thinking, like, what are some TV shows that don't necessarily qualify as horror that have had that kind of like fear or thrill kind of, and Westworld would be one of them. Because Westworld's twistiness with the time, and especially in season 2, I know you haven't seen season 2. Season 2 had some like seriously creepy moments.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how those, genres are becoming more and more flexible and more mergeful. I don't know. With the capability of mixing and matching and putting it all together. But that's been happening since
I have a question for Clint. Is there a musical horror?
There is. I have the answer.
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Aside from that,
that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, because Rocky Horror wasn't really that scary.
It was just a Halloween thing.
Yeah.
That literally is what it was.
But there is one called Repo, the horror rock opera or something along those lines, and it is gothic horror. on like drugs.
Interesting.
And it's like a metallic rock. And
we're doing that on Halloween. We're getting that.
We know what we're watching on Halloween.
Yeah, it's crazy. What are some of the horror films that you are looking forward to in the coming year? Because I know there's a bunch coming out. So
I think right now there's 2 that and they're both Stephen King ones. One is Pet Sematary. I saw the trailer a few days ago. Yeah. Pet Sematary is looking good. Plus John Lithgow's in that, and I love John Lithgow. I think he's amazing and everything. And the second one is It Chapter 2.
Yep.
And that's it. It Chapter 2 because the first I was with you when we watched the premiere.
Yes.
Together.
I think that was the first official time we like started chatting up, and it was
because the first, obviously compared to the Tim Curry ones from the 90s, I think.
Yeah,
the 90s, the miniseries.
Which was very campy.
It was still good.
Yeah.
It was such a good miniseries, but watching that movie, and that was like, just a breath of fresh air for the horror genre. And plus, Warner Bros. They put a big budget on that movie, which in horror terms is unheard of. These days, horror movies always have their budgets. They don't go above a certain amount. So seeing them push money into a horror movie, and it proved that it's still a good genre. And now that they've spent a lot of money with the second one, and
I mean, the cast alone for the second one is just huge.
Jessica Chastain,
James McAvoy,
like a lot of big actors in this one.
Yeah.
What's the name from Saturday Night Live, isn't it, as well?
Will Arnett? No.
Hunter.
Bill Hader,
yeah.
I get confused between those.
That's one of the ones I'm looking forward to as well, is Chapter 2.
Yeah, definitely, me too.
Okay. Any other one or just that one?
As a movie, no, but I'm actually... I'm looking forward to watching because I still haven't watched the latest season of The Walking Dead.
Oh, okay.
And from what I've heard, it's actually improved a lot because it went through a bad season. The last season was not good.
I think I stopped halfway through the one before because I just wasn't feeling it. I was just like, no.
So I'm actually curious to see what, especially with Andrew Lincoln leaving the show. So I want to see.
So maybe that breathed new life into or reanimated the dead. The dead.
That's a good horror movie, Reanimator. That's a classic.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, you should see that. Okay. It spawned off like a lot of sequels, but the original one is good. And by the way, I was thinking before about when we were talking about old classic horror movies that I like. I think The Fly. With Jeff Goldblum.
Cronenberg.
Jeff Goldblum, and it was also Gina Davis in the 80s remake. Obviously, there's the one where the dude with the big foot. No, that one's terrible. But the one where he had the transport, he was trying to figure out how to transport one thing to another. And wow. Because that movie started off as like it was a comedy, it was a romance thing, and then all of a sudden he started changing, and then you start realizing, whoa, this is a horror movie.
Yeah, this is creepy.
And towards the end, when body parts started dropping off.
The effects in that movie,
practical effects. Again, practical effects go a long way into believability. For me.
I think when I get back, I'm going to watch The First Fly. I think when we get back, definitely done. I'm watching that. I feel like watching
it now. Directed by David Cronenberg or no?
I'm not sure. Maybe, but it's such a cult classic movie that it spawned a sequel, but the sequel was nothing compared to the first one.
Well, yeah. I mean, most sequels aren't. I don't think.
Except Terminator 2 and Aliens.
Yes, okay.
That's it. That's the only two that I ever remember. Aliens and Terminator 2 are still better than the first one.
Done. I agree. I agree. Anything aside from it, Chapter 2?
They're remaking The Grudge for 2019, I've heard. And that's
again?
Yeah. They've rebooted the whole thing. So, thing is, I'm a fan of the original. They were Japanese, right? I think. The original one. Yeah, I'm a fan of those, and I was a fan of the first Americanized one.
Okay.
It was good. The other two were a bit on and off. I didn't really get into them, but I've heard that they're remaking a new one now, so I think that's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, for me, it Chapter 2 is one of the ones I'm looking forward to. But when I looked up, I pulled up on Google, I was like, horror films that are coming out 2019. The first one on the list was Hellboy, and I was like, does that really count as horror?
That's not horror.
Well, actually, they said that this one is going to be more of horror, like a horror genre movie.
Yeah, so in that case, Hellboy.
Okay, I'm on board.
Yeah, in that case, I'm definitely looking forward to Hellboy. I'm looking forward to seeing the new Halloween as well.
Yeah, this is going to be very good.
I liked seeing Jamie Lee Curtis back. And apparently this one is ignoring a whole bunch of them.
All of them. There's the first one. And then this one.
So this is how they're doing it. I wasn't sure because I was reading kind of the summaries of the second and third and whatever, and the second one felt like it would be it would be somehow connected. But then I saw an interview with her, and apparently no, it's just the first Halloween and this Halloween with everything in between. Just
never happened.
Nope.
Well, this is why we need Ryan Reynolds to come and clear out the timeline in every single series of movies.
Way to plug Deadpool.
That's all you need to do. Just come in every single series and just sort it out.
One final thing here, because this one's gone through a whole bunch of different production problems. The New Mutants was supposed to be... It's supposed to be a scare, like dark, a horror superhero thing, and they're going through reshoots to make it even scarier, apparently, and all that. Any thoughts on the New Mutants?
Well, I remember seeing the trailer. Was it like maybe 4 or 5 months ago?
Yeah, it came
out a while back. Was there a scene with like a washing machine? And
yeah.
And I remember seeing it, thinking I've seen this in so many movies.
Yeah, well,
that's literally what I thought. Maybe this because a lot of the comments on YouTube, especially when they dropped those trailers where, it's not new, this isn't, you know what I mean? They were saying it's nothing new, and maybe this is why they've decided to
reshoot and add in more scare stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, this is it.
Oh, actually, there's one more thing I do want to mention because I'm also a video gamer as well.
Okay.
There is a horror game coming out called Call of Cthulhu.
Call of Cthulhu.
Which is coming out in the end of October, and they're saying it's going to be really good and scary as hell, because I'm a big horror movie fan and horror video game fan as well.
See, I could never do horror movies. Don't even talk to me about horror games, because I am like, no.
Started playing horror games since a kid, because a lot of these movies you see now are spawned from video games, like Resident Evil and stuff like that. So
I mean, for me, the horror video games are just way too immersive. Like if I'm gonna get already terrified watching a movie, imagine me pretending like I'm holding the gun. I'm oh my god.
The thing is now is because there's VR. So
yeah, even that's even worse.
I have Resident Evil 7 at home, and I finished it. I've played it, and I got the VR kit. So I said, right, I'm going to do this, man. I don't think I've ever been more terrified in my life. There's a scene, I'm not joking, where your girlfriend comes up the stairs like this, and you're looking down, and it's in VR, and she grabs you and she starts stabbing you. I kept on doing this. I was like, that's what I did at home. Everyone thought I was insane. And that thing is, when you got VR, everyone's poking you as well, and you can't see. So you're like, that's
crazy.
Creepy. So,
that's crazy. Okay, so let's jump in to our final segment here with the final 5 minutes. So really quick, each and every one of us, an unforgettable horror scene or an unforgettable scene from a horror movie. Just a quick mention. Hard go.
E.T. I'm not. E.T. next to the river lake.
Okay.
He's all white.
All right.
Dying. That's the most traumatic thing I have seen.
For a Spook-tacular Script2Screen episode, we sure are laughing a lot. For me, an unforgettable horror scene. Probably, the seance scene in Drag Me to Hell. With the floating, and the goat thing.
Oh, the goat was
it's
amazing.
Just, for me, it's just, what? This movie's just, it's great. It's great. So that would be it for me.
For me, I think as a kid, seeing Nightmare on Elm Street, there was two scenes
that's
that
also
really
a good
scared
one.
me as a kid, because I watched this as a kid alone as well. Was the one where Johnny Depp got sucked into the bed and the blood came out?
Yeah.
The second one was when Freddy Krueger came out in that alleyway and his arms were stretching out. And they were his claws were that scared.
Yeah.
Dude, that sound.
As a kid seeing that didn't sleep for
speaking of Freddy Krueger, for me, out of all, you got Jason, you got Michael Myers, and then you've got Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Krueger's the one that, I would run in the opposite. I would just start praying. I don't know. Well,
the beauty about Freddy Krueger is just don't fall asleep. That was it. That was the whole point. And that's why as a kid, you just don't sleep.
Oh, man. All right. On that note, make sure you follow us. You can follow us on our social media here at Alan Mahana on my end and
Had.solo
on his end. And you can also follow Clint on Instagram at
Clint Maximus. Just have a look for me. I'm there.
Okay. But it used to be a much longer one.
No, because I'm doing different DJ projects now. I've got 6 different things going on right now.
Okay. So make sure you follow him on at Clint Maximus. You can also check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/Script2Screen pod. So many words. You can also check out our website, Script2ScreenPod.com. And
you can listen to us on Podbean, Podchasers, and Rami, Spotify. Watch us on YouTube.
And Facebook. You can check out our new spin-off series, Script2Screen Conversations.
Absolutely.
Which is going to be going on for a while now, because I'm kind of liking it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. So thank you for joining us today. Enjoy your Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Enjoy your Halloween. Have a very happy, scary Halloween. Don't die out there.
Don't eat too much candy.
Don't eat too much candy.
You're gonna be diabetic, kids. It's a serious problem.
It is a very serious problem. Not to be taken too lightly. So have a fantastic Halloween. We'll see you again next week. See ya. Hi, I'm Alan.
And I am Hat Solo.
And together we can rule the galaxy.
That might take too much time. Let's talk about films and TV instead.
That makes sense. Join us at 3 p.m. every Friday for Script2Screen Spotlight and Saturday for the Script2Screen News Hour.
We'll be discussing all the latest news from the film and TV industry.
And we'll also enchant you with some of the greatest songs and soundtracks out there. Script2Screen, only on Radio Lebanon 96.2 FM, made to be heard.